Hey, what is going on guys, XpertFusion here, and today I'm going to be going over the top 5 worst things about Call of Duty Modern Warfare's multiplayer. So, as you guys probably already know, I'm not a big fan of COD Modern Warfare. I really enjoy Warzone. I think Warzone is the greatest part of this game. I love the campaign as well. Spec Ops is a completely different story. It's just probably one of the worst experiences I've ever had in a COD game ever. But the multiplayer, I think it had a lot of strong suits to it, but there's just so many things that drag it down, some of them more than others. And I wanted to discuss the 5 things I think that are the worst about this game. There's also a couple other things that we'll go over, like honorable mentions. There's a lot of honorable mentions. But I just want to make this video because not only do I want COD to not make these problems in the future, but I also want to just, let people know, because a lot of people do ask me often, why do you not like the game? Because there are a lot of people who really do enjoy Modern Warfare's multiplayer, and I don't want to forget about the good stuff, because of course there are good stuff. So really quickly, I'm just going to go over the 3 things I really do enjoy about this game, and that would be the weapon sounds and animations, the free maps and guns, as well as the gunfight and ground war modes. These are all like new innovations that the game made, mainly because of the new engine, allowing more players and allowing these really clean weapon animations and sounds. The free stuff is all, Activision's new business model, which I really do like as well. But those are really the only things I enjoy about the game, and none of them are really gameplay related. They're just like content related. So I think that's where this game really falls short, is the gameplay itself. Like, if you only care about certain things, you might really enjoy this game. But as someone who cares a lot more about gameplay more than anything, like, I would rather take shitty weapon sounds and have good gameplay instead of really good weapon sounds and shitty gameplay. You know what I mean? But now that we got the good stuff out of the way, let's go into the honorable mentions, and then we'll start counting through the top 5 worst things about this game. So there's a lot of honorable mentions. We're gonna bang through them pretty quickly. First of all, the fact that deaths don't show on the scoreboard as you're playing the majority of the modes is really stupid in my opinion, because that's one of the biggest things in COD that I really enjoyed, was being able to look at your own kill-death ratio in the middle of a game, no matter what mode it is. And I know the reason they took it out is because they don't want the casuals, fan base, to feel bad about getting a lot of deaths in the game, and they want people to play the objective more, and they feel like they'll play the objective more if they're not as afraid to die. But I don't think that really works, especially when kill streaks are in the game and people really want to earn them. They're not going to want to die anyways, so they're just going to camp anyways. It's not like that's really going to change much for how they play the objective. I think being able to see your deaths really makes games more interesting, and it makes me just, I guess, care more about playing. I just don't really care too much, because I'm like, oh, I have 20 kills and this other guy has 20 kills, but he might have 21 deaths, I might have 3 deaths. It's a big, massive difference between us, but on the scoreboard it says we're basically the same, which I think is dumb, especially in team deathmatch. They don't even show your deaths in team deathmatch. I know they do after the game, but it should show it during the game, and of course there's that stupid watch that you can get that shows it, but I shouldn't have to buy a watch in order to see it. Mastery camos are kind of disappointing in this game. I think Obsidian and the Damascus are both disappointing for final camos. They're not really necessarily bad camos, but for the final camo in the game, it doesn't even need to be animated necessarily. Just make it something worth going for, and I don't feel like it is. And the grind for it also sucks because of certain challenges, including the mounted kills that you have to get with all the different guns. Nobody wants to get 100 mounted kills with any gun in the game, because that slows down the pacing of the game so substantially. And that's another thing I really hate about this game, is the mounting. I didn't hate the leaning feature in COD Ghosts, mainly because no one really used it, but mounting is something people do the whole freaking game, and it gives you like the best accuracy in the world. So people go in the back of the map, they just mount around a corner, and a lot of these maps are wide open too, so they have these really long lines of sights, especially maps like Shoot House that have that really long line of sight down the middle of the map. So people just mount there and just camp. That's not fun for me, at least. The time to kill, I think, is a little bit too fast for me. I don't think it's that fast compared to a couple other COD games, but it's still faster than what I would want from a game. I do enjoy a slower time to kill. It doesn't have to be as slow as Black Ops 4, but definitely slower than what it is in Modern Warfare, because I feel like you just melt people in this game. Obviously, Warzone's a different story, because it's Warzone, Battle Royale, you're supposed to have a slower time to kill. But in the multiplayer, I feel like you just melt people, people melt you, which makes the gunfights not last as long, which in return makes people less likely to run around the map. They kind of like to camp more because they're afraid of getting shot, and also makes you getting killed in the back very, very common, rather than having actual fun gunfights. And the kill streaks being default instead of score streaks is a big disappointment. I know people were asking for that, and I don't know why. I don't see the reason for that. Kill streaks encourage camping, score streaks don't. And I know there's a perk that gives you score streaks, but first of all, it increases the price of the kill streak substantially, and it doesn't really give you much in return for that. And you have to use a perk. Why would I use a perk when I should be using something like Ghost, which is much more useful than something like Point Strike, what it's called, Point Streak or something, it's some weird name. Instead, it should either be giving you a choice between one or the other, or score streaks should just be the default, like, you know, regularly, you know what I mean? I really don't like how they did that, and I hope that the next game goes back to normal, or at least gives you the option between the two without making you use a perk instead. That would be really, really nice. So, another thing is the created class system, which I really do enjoy the gunsmith. I think seeing like over 60 attachment options for each gun, or somewhere around that lines, is pretty awesome. But the problem is a lot of those attachments aren't even useful, to be honest. Like, you're only going to use like a certain amount of them. And what I really don't like about the created class system as a whole, though, is how the perks, equipment, and all that is forced upon you, unlike Pick 10, where Pick 10 allows you to choose whatever the hell you want. It's really unfortunate that you're forced to have 5 attachments, you're forced to have equipment, you're forced to have your perks secondary. I like to mix and match. I like Pick 10 for that. I like being able to switch up my playstyle by, you know, taking off some perks, putting on more attachments, taking off some attachments, putting on more perks. It gives much more customization and replayability, but when you're forced to use what they give you, it kind of takes away from that. And it also makes grenade spam and equipment spam much worse than it would be in a game with Pick 10, to be honest, because at least Pick 10 allows you to choose against that. I just would much rather have them gone with the Pick 10 system, but they could do a Pick 10, but still have the gunsmith the way it is, maybe increase it to Pick 13, and have all of those slots that you can use for the gunsmith. You can still have a shitload of attachments, but just don't force me to use everything in there, you know? Let me mix and match them. That's all I'm asking for. Let's get into the top 5 worst things about Modern Warfare. Obviously, like I said, this is not talking about Warzone at all. I think Warzone is really fantastic. It's one of the best things that's happened to COD in a long time, but this is talking about Modern Warfare multiplayer only. So, number 5 is going to be the cosmetic microtransaction system. Now, before you yell at me, when I'm talking about cosmetic microtransactions, I'm not talking about how they handle the guns or the maps and all that type of stuff, because those are free and that's great and I love that. But the cosmetics in this game, there's really no free way to earn them, which really hurts it for grinders. Now, there are some cosmetics in the game that you can earn for free, obviously, like the Mastery camos, which there's only 2 of them, and all the other camos in the game, which are kind of crappy. And there's a couple of things you can earn for free in like the challenges, but there's not that many available really. And I guess technically you could earn them for free because you do get COD points out of the battle pass, but you get like 300 free ones released, so technically you're not really going to get much out of that. I just think it's really unfortunate that there's no free ways to earn the black market items. Now, I'm not saying we need supply drops to fix this, but I think a good way to fix this would be allow us to either earn an in-game currency like crypto keys and let us use crypto keys to purchase the items straight up or buy them how they are in the shop. This would give grinders the option to play the game a shitload and get those things. Also, the people who don't really care too much for grinding, they can just buy them. So you're not really losing out on that much money. You're just getting more people to want to play your game even more because they want to grind it out. They want to get all these cool things. So I get why they're doing it, because they want to make as much money as possible. Maybe they lose out a little bit of money, but it definitely ruins the game for people like me who enjoy grinding it and like things to work for. I don't have much to work for in this game, like not at all, which kind of brings me into the number 4 spot, which is the lack of a prestige system. I have no reason to level up. Leveling up is worthless in this game. It does absolutely nothing for me. And I agree, the previous prestige systems in most CODs have been pretty boring as well. But to fix that is not to just remove it. That doesn't make any sense. There's so many other ways they could fix prestige, and the simple way, in my opinion, is to just give us more prestige rewards. Infinite Warfare did that great, how they give us classic weapons every time we prestiged, and then we could start getting nukes with those classic weapons as we prestiged even past Prestige Master. That's a great system. Why not do the same thing here where we get cool weapon variants or something, weapon kits that we can use, blueprints, whatever you call them in this game. Getting those after every time we prestige, rather than just getting to level 155 every game to get one little blueprint, but it only lasts for that whole season, and so you just can't level up after you get to 155 after that season. That's an incredibly boring prestige system, and I don't know whose idea that was, but it's a terrible idea. I'll just be frank with you, it's not a good idea. And number 3, I'm going to go with the no red dots on the mini-map, which is so So terrible. I think most people have kind of gotten over that though. We've kind of just given up and saying, yeah, obviously they're not going to change it. I was hoping for an overhaul because I think this was one of the worst changes in the game. But if you guys didn't know, Modern Warfare's multiplayer made it so when you shoot your guns, you do not show up on the minimap like you would in literally every other COD. Rather, you need a UAV to show up there. You do show up on the compass, but no one really uses the compass, nor do people really care too much to use the compass. I mean, I guess some people do, but most people don't. And it's really odd. Battle Royale, they even made it so your guns show up on the minimap, but for some reason they don't in multiplayer, the mode where it really should. I don't get that. But the reason why this is such an issue is because it really makes people not want to get out of their camping spots. A lot of these issues are really causing more camping. If you haven't noticed, that's one of the biggest issues with this game. But I didn't have camping on this list because honestly, camping is something that's caused by all these things that I'm stating. They all cause camping. Camping's not just one issue that should be listed. Instead, all these things cause it. And people don't want to run out in the open when they can't see where people are, and they're not afraid to leave because guess what? The red dots aren't even showing up. Suppressors almost feel worthless in multiplayer because all they do is decrease the sound, but that's it. You know, it's not like suppressors in the past where they would actually really help you, but you might not want to run them because they might decrease your range a little bit. So there was like, you know, kind of like a reason for not doing it. So I think that was, you know, a terrible change. It was just simply a terrible change that I really wish they didn't go for, but it is what it is, I guess. Coming in number 2 spots, you all know what this is, skill-based matchmaking. I was going to put this number 1, but then I realized I think number 1 might be even a bigger issue because number 2, look, skill-based matchmaking, it has been in every game, right? But it's not been heavy in every game. It's been very unnoticeable in most CODs. They made it really heavy in this game because they really wanted those shittier players to enjoy their time more as opposed to dealing with all the like tryhards who just destroy lobbies. But that's kind of been part of COD for a long time. You're gonna get into lobbies where people dominate you. That's just how it works. And then sometimes you'll get in lobbies where you'll be the one dominating. But when you make a skill-based matchmaking system, you don't have that randomness. Instead, every game is, oh, you're playing against someone who's basically just as good as you, so the gameplay just kind of starts feeling stale. You're not going to have those lobbies where you're just getting shit on, or those lobbies where you're shitting on them. There's really no shitting on anyone in this game. It's more so just kind of bulling around. Now, obviously, there's, you know, exceptions. Sometimes you can. Your KD isn't going to determine how good or bad you are, obviously. There could be reasons why your KD's lower than others because maybe you went for Damascus, therefore lowering your KD substantially, stuff like that. So KD doesn't really determine how good you are at this game. So honestly, it doesn't completely, it's not a perfect science even then, but it does ruin some of the flow of gameplays because when you have better KD, you're basically being punished for it, which is really unfortunate in this game. And I don't mind having a little bit of skill-based matchmaking like they did in some other CODs, but when it gets to the point where you notice every lobby you're playing against people who are pretty damn good, it's really not fun anymore, and it kind of takes away that enjoyment. And I get it for the shittier players are probably having a damn blast, but it's just not for me, man. It's really not for me. And then coming in the number 1 spot, I'd say the worst thing about Modern Warfare is the map design and locations. And I think this is pretty obvious ever since launch, but it hasn't really changed. I mean, every new map that they're coming out with has been just kind of the same shit. The only maps that actually are kind of enjoyable in this game are the few smaller maps that they have besides Shipment. I think Shipment, only people like it because it really allows them to get Damascus camo even quicker. But in terms of gameplay, in reality, that map plays like absolute donkey shit. It's just random. It's just complete random. There's no flow to it. There's no control. And people are like, oh, that's just how Shipment is. No. Have you played World War II Shipment, COD 4 Shipment? There was a lot of control to it. You could dominate the map. You could find a predictable flow of how the map works, but that's not what Shipment's like in this game. This Shipment is literally random. You spawn in, you die. You spawn in, you die. You spawn in, oh, now you're getting a couple kills. Oh, now you just got an 8-piece. You just got 8 kills. I guess people like that mayhem. Some people do. But in terms of actual gameplay flow, it's just god-awful for more than one game. I can do it just so I can get a lot of camo kills. That's the only reason I'd ever play it. But since I don't really give a shit about getting Damascus anymore, the map is completely worthless to me now. And a couple of their other remakes have been pretty good, but they're remakes from old games, So obviously they're going to be playing just like that. But of course there are some bad things about them because some of the gameplay of how Modern Warfare does kind of take away from it a little bit. But I'd say like Hard Hat, for example, actually flows pretty well because obviously it was a pretty good map in Modern Warfare 3. But a lot of the new maps, they've been trying to go with this really new design that doesn't really fit COD at all. They're trying to make realistic locations that don't exactly flow well in an arcade shooter-oriented game. Like Piccadilly, there's no flow to that map. Zero. Zip. There's nothing there because they took away that 3-lane aspect and they just said, let's just put Piccadilly, just place it down on a map. It's a terrible idea. That's a terrible idea. That's not going to make a good map. It's just not at all. And I think that they could have done better things with it. Another thing is map locations. They're all really boring. I hate to say it, but they're really boring. They're either in some Russian woodland place like Verdansk or something, or they're in some Kyrgyzstan, which was like the fictional country in the campaign, some Kyrgyzstan like desert or something. And then you have Piccadilly, which is like the only one that's different, obviously. Everything else is just the same shit. They look so similar. Or you have some container area with like construction crates and stuff. That's really it. There's no interesting locations. And you might be like, oh, that's how it's always been. No, it has not. Go back to Modern Warfare 2. Maps like Terminal, High Rise, Rust, Estate, they all look completely different from one another. And then go back to Black Ops 2, Black Ops 1, Summit, Hijacked, Standoff, Raid, Firing Range. They all have completely different vibes, completely different feels. These Modern Warfare maps all feel the same to me in terms of their location. Obviously not their design. Their design, they went for some wacky ass design for every map, making them random. But the locations, though, feel the same. It's like the opposite of previous games. A lot of previous games like World War II, Black Ops 4, a lot of the maps felt the same in terms of design, but in terms of location, they felt so different. I'd rather have the location be different than the design, because the design should stay that, arcade-style 3-lane experience. Not completely linear. I don't need it to be exactly linear, but I want that. I want something that's more 3-lane, something that flows well. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's one thing that this game really just misses on, is that flow. It does not have flow. Every time I play multiplayer, I've noticed it's very, very random. The spawns feel kind of random. It's not easy to predict what's going on. It's kind of just like go in there and hope for the best. Try to get some kills. You're probably you might do all right. You might, but you're probably just gonna, have an experience that's not the most enjoyable. And it really depends what kind of player you are, obviously. If you're a big Search and Destroy player, this game's actually pretty fun, because Search and Destroy in Modern Warfare is actually really good. And you know why it is? It's because these maps actually really do well for Search and Destroy, but they do not do well with any respawn mode. Respawn modes suck in this game. Ground War is an exception, like I said. I think Ground War is actually kind of fun. A lot of these things do hold it back, but it's still more enjoyable than I think anything else in this game, to be honest, because map design doesn't matter as much in a Ground War mode, because it's just so big and there's like vehicles and stuff. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, that's all I have to really say for this video. I really wanted to enjoy this game, but I really could not find myself doing it. I still play Warzone though, thankfully. Warzone's a thing, because otherwise I just would not be touching this game. I'm really hoping this next game just knocks it out of the park with the multiplayer experience, and if it doesn't, it's okay, because we'll have zombies at least, so I'll at least accept it. But this game didn't have that third mode to fall back on until Warzone, of course. So hopefully you all enjoyed the video, and I'll be seeing you guys on my next one. Peace out.